I forwarded in stream drive.
Now
Yeah,
Correct. Anybody, just like upstairs, anybody could attend.
yeah, I see, okay.
You know, it's a meeting, but it's not, per se for applicant
Yeah.
and board, interaction.
Yeah.
Or anything like that.
Sure.
Okay,
Lisa's with us, she's ready. Everybody else ready to jump into the meeting?
sure.
Okay, so we just have one item on our agenda tonight. It's PB 22-15 for North David Quad subdivision, 2022. And I wanted to just bring your attention, the packet that's labeled staff report. Shalice has included all of our previous staff reports in this. Should you want to go back and check our previous comments, and or have any question about them. At the bottom of the pages, down in the right hand corner, you'll find the page for the staff report. FYI there. There are staff comments. I think there are probably about 8 of them for this review round. And we thought they were fairly substantial comments. So at the end of our presentation, and when it comes to board vote, we just wanted to remind you that if we wanted to remind you now in the pre-meeting that if at that point in time, the board is uncomfortable with moving forward with approval, that it should be considered. If you're uncomfortable moving forward, that we do have a planning, a public hearing planned for tonight, and it was advertised with an anticipation of the approval, potentially upon condition. But if the board does not approve the proposal to move forward the subdivision plan, then we may want to take a postpone the hearing. Just an FYI. So, and then I also wanted to draw your attention. There's the subdivision plat is turned into 2-page set. So the actual subdivision proposal is page 1, and page 2 is in
Alicia, on the public hearing, if somebody shows, can we still allow them to speak?
It would, if you're still holding a public hearing, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So in the past, I think I've seen it where you've held a public hearing still since it was advertised.
Yeah,
But then we leave it open. So that
yes,
it's not-
yeah.
it can remain open for, if that's what the board chooses.
Yeah.
to.
I just still be show this, it takes the time to hear, I don't like getting the saying like a listen tonight.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. I don't think there's any reason we wouldn't open
Right,
public
right.
hearings.
So when they go. Yeah,
In that case, would please adjourn it at the end instead of close it.
What's that?
At that point, please just adjourn the public hearing instead of close.
Yes.
Okay. Did you want to bring up? And so we just thought for the ease of this, we would run through the presentation really quickly. So I think everybody's familiar with what the subdivision is. In the previous board meeting, it was determined that it would be approved that it could be a minor subdivision. Again, so it's a request to subdivide from 3.29 acres to a resulting 2.97 acres and 0.42 acre lots. The location is 49 Street. So that was just an overview of the basics. An overview of the existing lot layout. And then where lot 1 and lot 2 would be resulting. This is looking at the rectory building, which would be proposed lot 2. And the next one is the frontage view of the church. And then overlaid the estimated lot boundaries for the proposed lot 2. And then
Can we keep that on for a second?
this one, sure. So in laying out that boundary line roughly, it's definitely not survey grade, but I was measuring along the grades and the sidewalk, so estimating that the width of the side, each sidewalk rectangle is approximately 4 feet wide to give, so we'll see this later in the presentation, but there's 17.5 feet between the rear of the nearest parking space and the proposed boundary line.
You're saying that they are still having that be a two-way travel lane?
Well,
But the previous proposal was to turn this side into a one-way.
Proposed one-way traffic.
right,
Yeah.
so those, this is an existing
Existing, right,
condition
yeah.
photo.
Yeah.
So we didn't place those arrows down there, they're there.
So in your recommendation, it was recommended, as Tom said, that this be narrowed to what would be a one-way lane going in. The remaining paved section on the proposed lot 2 would turn into green space.
That was the intention of the staff comment,
Yeah.
yes.
Now then, and the applicant did have granted a drive lane, a variance for a drive lane deficiency,
Correct.
but is still proposing the full 26-foot wide drive lane per the ordinance. It just happens to straddle on the adjacent property.
There,
In his new plan, he's proposing that he keeps the paving on the adjacent property on lot 2, which was against recommendations from
you're
what we
looking-
discussed at the last. Which,
he actually, it's not. If you really drill down to it, it's not clear that he's making a proposal to have maintain the drive lane, because I don't believe he shows the edge of the drive lane there. He has an arrow on just on the north side of lot 1, adjacent to the proposed lot 2 boundary line. But it's not explicit that the drive lane would cross over into lot 2 and they would do no.
oh, whoa. I guess the biggest thing is his intent is to keep 26-foot wide of pavement,
That is what we're understanding.
where we were initially discussing and recommendations, the potential that all the pavement would be maintained on lot 1. And lot 2 would not be part of the drive lane.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes, the drive lane would be reduced from a 2-way to a 1-way and be encompassed all on lot 1.
And now it doesn't give me the exact language, but he has a variance for that. Technically,
He has yes, and so that's the motion that we included, a draft motion that we included in our staff comments. Actually, do you mind There we go. So this is the draft motion made on January 17th by the ZBA. So it's the last part of this. That is valid only upon easement approval, lot 2 to allow lot 1 an average of 7 feet of easement over the property line. That's referring to the driveway.
So they are, so they got the variance for it to say 7 feet of the driveway will be in lot 2. That which is the smaller of the two lots.
Right. In a manner of speaking. So I just want to, I'm sure the planning board is aware, but I just want to remind the planning board that the planning board doesn't have the authority to grant an easement.
Right. It seemed like the zoning board did though from this.
They cannot grant easement.
Okay.
They made it, they condition their approval on the granting of easement.
And the granting of the easement has to come from the building department,
No, it would be a private property.
or private property. Okay, so that'd be a private agreement between the
Between
church
the,
and the purchase party.
that's
Okay, so that must. At the last meeting, he stated that they had an interested buyer. I would assume that the person that they've spoken to is,
we would imagine
yeah, okay,
that. We don't know.
we don't know exactly yet.
We would have to confirm.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So going back to the overview of the proposed operation. And then this is the north side of lot 2. So this is actually the estimated location of the existing boundary line. For the church property. And there's already, so it already goes down, there's already a shared easement and a shared drive in place between these 2 lots, the lot to the north of the church property. And we learned through our review process that the lot to the north is also a lot that was previously subdivided from the church property. So there are patterns of shared easements when the church subdivides properties. Just an overview of the zoning table. And then the view of the most recent iteration of the subdivision plan. And then,
I would just note that the paper copy they have is not.
right. So the paper copies that you have are actually not the most current versions. The sewer line details that we had been requesting had not been fully depicted. There were still details, the manholes along South Catherine Street had not been identified. And laterals from the church and I believe the rectory building as well had not been depicted. And the legend did not been updated to show laterals. Since that was one of the last items that needed to be updated, so he provided us an updated electronic copy, but I was not provided paper copies. And that just was a point that we did not pursue. Try to that all of that in paper copies. So we're just going to run through some of the plat updates, the differences between the previous plat and the current plat. With the attempts of the applicant to address staff comments. So there are dimensions per front panel width shown on the current plan. Added directional travel arrows throughout the drive lanes. language regarding proposed shared use of parking spaces on proposed lot 2, that was not evident on the previous plat. So the previous plat, there was a black swath in this area that is now hashed. And now on this current plat, it's more evident that this was intended to be by the applicant to be a green space area. In an attempt to respond to staff comments of turning the area to the south, the side yard area to the south of the proposed lot to the green space. These are the sewer and water laterals that are depicted on the electronic plat, but not on the paper copies.
In your previous slide. The map that we have, the wider part of the grass area is at the sidewalk, and it tapers to be narrower further away from the road. This seems to be just the opposite of what we have.
It's on the easement plat. No,
Yeah,
the subdivision plat.
looking at these, no, I see where it's at.
How wide is that at its widest point, like the
The
West.
green space area?
Yeah.
I don't believe there's a dimension. Or just, we would have to.
I think, yeah, I thought they were adding less than 10 feet of green space.
Would some sort of like low fence along there help mitigate the concern about sort of narrow green space next to the driveway?
Yeah, and one of the newest staff comments is that they provide screening, which is a zoning requirement. However, I heard back from the building inspector, that the applicant who's down to talk to them about that staff comment. And it was communicated to me via email by the building inspector that ZBA and the building department reviewed that zoning requirement and waived it because they felt that the parking was existing, an existing condition, and therefore the screening requirement was not necessary.
And that's comment 4 from the staff report. Is that, just to make sure that I'm looking at the right ones. So Abby, I think you were talking about screening on the grass on the here, and your, Alicia, was your comment on the screening seemed like it was parking.
It was screening from the parking.
Well, between the
Yeah.
parking and that grass, new grass and stuff.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I think I was misunderstanding. I thought it was the requiring the parking on the back of the structure on like the west side to be screened.
Well, and theoretically, that the zoning requirement would apply to that as well.
I see, okay, but that's been essentially removed from consideration because it's considered an existing condition.
By the building department
Okay.
In the zoning board,
and the zoning board, for the building. Inspector.
Is there's a chain link fence along the 7 spaces.
Not fully, that actually. It's not depicted on this plan fully, but you'll see it on the lot to the north of proposed lot 2. On the west side of that lot, it's been hard to see it. Actually, here we go.
So when you had a picture of the shared driveway, to the
Door.
north.
Thank you, Shelley.
Yeah, that was a change.
You can sort of see it there. So I guess my question is, aside from, we're talking about vehicular access and trying to accommodate all that, what are we gonna do? What is the proposal for pedestrian flow between the two lots? From the parking spaces for one, how are they gonna, they're gonna walk all around behind the garage? I don't know, that's question number one. Number two, they do have. If you flip over to the other picture. There's a bunch of, there's access off the porch and then there's another entrance that goes down into the green space.
Yeah.
How does that? I don't know how that flows with how this building breaks up in the future, those would be apartment entrances.
Right,
It-
or, and the DBA is talking about it, they're worried that people will park in that side area. And restrict the flow of traffic,
or even,
right,
other than
right.
the question. Okay. Board questions for staff?
I guess just on the end of that question about the fence, they are similar to, sort of the interaction between the two. Is that fence being removed as part of this? Because I would imagine that's part of the same fence that circles the rest of the property. So I don't know if that's being like owned and maintained by lot one, or if it's just being removed.
Are you talking the fence?
That's would be on the west side of the property against the parking lot. Yeah, proposed lot two, because it's within, that fence would be within. That essentially, it would separate the rear lawn area from the parking lot. But that, lot two extends out into the parking lot now. Am I seeing that right on the plat?
And I apologize, that the fence was not front and center
Okay,
of our
yeah, no, that's okay.
our search or review,
Yeah.
but not to say that that isn't an important point to cover. And I would have to say that it's not fully depicted on the plat.
Yeah.
So that's, I think that's why it was the, our reviewer consideration.
Okay, easy enough, thanks.
So, and that may be a question like you're about.
Yeah.
Any other board? Questions, comments, during pre-meeting? Staff? Correct. Yeah. Okay. It is 6 o'clock. Good board will call the meeting to order for planning board, meeting January 23rd, 2023. All rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a full board here today, if I can get a roll call.
Jim Edelman,
Yep.
Rick Terry,
Yes.
Kurt Irving,
Yep.
Abby Musiker,
Yes.
Tom Castro.
Yes.
Thank you. We might as well move right into our agenda. Planning board application number 22-15. The proposed subdivision has been here in the past few months. the staff for review.
Okay, thank you. Should we pull our PowerPoint up? So, again, we have one agenda item this evening, it's 22-15 for Notre Dame de Victoire, classified subdivision, 2022. A minor subdivision, the request is to subdivide an existing 3.39 acre parcel of land with improvements into 2 lots with existing improvements of 2.97 acres and 0.42 acres. Again, the proposal for a minor subdivision. The request to subdivide an existing 3.39 acre parcel of land which contains existing improvements, including a church, parish center, and garage, surface parking, church rectory, and a playground, resulting into 2 parcels of the following composition. A 2.97 acre parcel that will retain the existing improvements of the church, surface parking, and a playground. A 0.42 acre parcel that will retain the church rectory building and attached garage. All located between 4919 and 4917 South Catherine Street. That's the map parcel number 221.11-9-20.1. It's zone R2. The applicant is Father Kevin McEwen and Notre Dame de Priest of Plattsburgh, and the plan preparer is Dean Matchaway, who's the land surveyor. And we're business evening. So this gives an overview, an aerial overview of the existing lot and the church property. Zone R2. This is an overview of the prospective division. This is the street frontage of the rectory building. And the street frontage of what would be the remaining church property. This is the approximate location of the proposed boundary for prospective lot 2. The arrows that you see on the ground are the existing arrows of the 2-way drag lane. And then this is the approximate location of the what would be the proposed lot 2 northern boundary line, and is the existing boundary line of the church property now, straddling a shared driveway with the property to the north. An overview of the zoning table, which is found on the proposed subdivision plat. And this is an overview of the proposed subdivision plat for review this evening. Some of the plat updates since the board previously saw this plat and reviewed it. As staff comments requested and board resolution approved, the applicant provided parking aisle widths throughout. Directional travel arrows throughout the drag lane areas. Language regarding proposed shared use of the parking spaces on phase lot 2, which had not previously been depicted. Notes regarding the green space on proposed lot 2. Water and sanitary lateral locations, which are not shown on the hard copy planning board plat, but have been received via a more recent electronic plat. Parking aisle width of the drag lane located on proposed lot 1, where the nearest point is 17.5 feet from the property line. Updated legend. Notes detailing easements. And then the addition of the easement plan, which depicts the location, visually the locations of the easement, the proposed easement and the easement. As well as the easement table. So, and then the applicant also, for the previous planning board meeting, and hearing for this proposal, and condition upon approval was the applicant's variance for, parking deficiencies, the drive lane width deficiency, and open space deficiencies. So that hearing was held on January 17th last week. And then I have this as a draft approval, just because it was too soon after the zoning board meeting to receive the official documentation. But the motion was to approve appeal number 2340 OLPA to create a 2-lot subdivision to parcel off the former church rectory and intend to sell as a residential property with subdivision creating lot 1 with open space, parking area, and parking space size and efficiencies, valid only upon easement approval of lot 2 to allow lot 1 an average of 7 feet of easement over the property line. And then we have added the staff comments that went out in the report ahead of this evening's meeting with a few sections highlighted. Staff comment 1 was an overview of a previous comment with the addition, with a few additions, and highlighting that the applicant was granted a variance from this deficiency for the zoning board, from the zoning board of appeal at its January 17th meeting. Comment 2, again, as noted above, the applicant was granted a variance for a deficiency. That's that. Comment 3, the planning board further adopts staff recommendation 7 of the December 19th, 2022 staff report, which is was attached to the comment, which recommended that the applicant codify on the previous recommendation to convert the area between the southern boundary line of lot 2 and the primary structure of lot 2 to green space. Whereas I just want to pause here, the applicant has provided a sliver of that area as green space. Though it had shown that they were in green space by converting a sliver of that area. However, the intent of that comment was more along the lines of life safety as well as to meet the open space requirements. So the next comment, the planning staff reaffirmed its prior recommendations that the existing westbound drive lane, which is located on lot 1, we proposed that is proposed to be straddling the southern boundary of proposed lot 2, is not in keeping with the proposed primary use of a 3-family residence or a residential lot. Proposed lot 2 already attained access along its northern boundary, and retaining the area of drive lane, which would straddle the proposed lot, would diminish the overall look and feel of the standalone residential lot and for the primary structure on the lot that will no longer be accessory to the church use. Furthermore, it should be taken into account that there are 2 side entrances to the residential structure located on the south facing frontage of the building, which may deposit residents and visitors within feet of the existing drive lane, which the proposed ingress easement area located on lot 2 works to preserve. failure to convert this area to green space and or to separate vehicular travel from the southern side yard of lot 2 residential structure via substantial buffer poses the risk of vehicular pedestrian conflicts and present a hazard to the welfare and safety of the users of both lots. The next comment, we had received a note back from the building inspector's office today regarding the staff comment requesting that screening be put in place once the subdivision was completed. And the building inspector's office informs our office that there had already been a discussion about a screening requirement within the building inspector's office, the ZBA office, and that it was deemed unnecessary to enforce that requirement because they determined that the parking on the church parcel that would remain is a pre-existing condition, and therefore would not have to conform to that part of the code. Comment 5 is recommending that the applicant reconfigure the driveway of the parking lot on lot 1 is a partial one-way path resulting in 2 entrances. Sorry, excuse me. That's it. So this is a restatement. The applicant has reconfigured the driveway, the parking lot on lot 1 as a partial one-way path resulting in 2 entrances and 1 exit to the church and move to two-way lanes. After further review of the proposed design, planning staff recommends the following. Or y'all to that reading it out loud. Everybody good with that? Okay. And then I'll let you run through some stuff in a minute. Let's conclude the presentation.
Questions on 6, 7, and 8? We do have the applicant here, the surveyor. Welcome you for further comment. Review of the application.
After discussing some of the staff comments with the applicant, staff comments, item 1 and 2 are self-explanatory. Here, variance, the variance granted by the ZBA meets the requirements. Staff comment number 3. In regards to their recommendation, against their driving lanes rather than traffic. And the project had initially proposed the driving lane that overlaps onto the southern portion of lot 2. As part of the 26-foot rear backup file requirement. It was the applicant's initial standing that a 2-way travel lane be maintained as it is now. The project did make an attempt to provide one-way traffic to move traffic westerly off from South Catherine Street through this 26-foot backup lane. This was done and shown as the project had not received the variance from the ZBA. The project has since received the variance for the backup area for the perpendicular parking. During the discussion with the ZBA, it was discussed as to if you're providing and able to provide that 26-foot backup area, why are you dropping down to a one-way lane? why are you not maintaining a two-way traffic? They felt that, even though it wasn't their final call, they felt that this was a better approach than the one-way traffic. Coming off from South Avenue. They also felt that by having two-way traffic, you would not have the issue of, discourage any parking along the northerly part or within that southern portion of lot 2. There has been a long-standing traffic pattern coming off of South Catherine Street. There's no parking. It works. You realize that as the planning department would like to see a freestanding lot 2, it'd be great if we could. But there are circumstances that we need to try to mitigate, and yet by providing what we have proposed, we feel that it provides a balanced solution to this project and be able to still meet the needs for lot 1 and lot 2. The project provides a green space to separate traffic from the area south of the existing building, which we have. It is a sliver where it's up that area. And we provide that distinction between the travel lane and the foot traffic from the building along through. We still feel that the church strongly feels that it is best to provide that two-way traffic coming off from South Catherine Street with the two-way traffic. Yes, we had attempted to develop a plan for the one-way traffic as we were trying to follow, recommendation from the planning department. But with the opinion from the ZBA about this two-way traffic and being able to provide that 26 feet, they didn't understand why we're dropping down to the traffic. Item number 4, has been discussed about the observance of section 360-26H. That is a previous condition and doesn't apply to the project. Item 5. The driving lanes, driving miles within lot 1, again, have been a long established. And we strongly feel that by changing it to one-way traffic, there is a comment made that and reduce potential vehicle conflicts and threats to wider safety. If part of the project is submitted to the police and fire, there's no response or no comment. Reducing it to one-way traffic, I don't understand how that is going to take away or reduce the potential for conflict. You're still gonna have the foot traffic to the parking lot. There hasn't been any issues. And we're asking the planning board to maintain that two-way traffic. It'll be far more of a negative impact by trying to switch this to one-way traffic. Away from current two-way traffic violations. Item number 6 is recommended to the applicant reconfigure the parking on lot 2 so it may be accessed over and across lot 2 solely as to support the creation of parcels independent of lot 1. I guess I could ask you just exactly what you were expecting for parking lot reconfiguration for lot 2.
Well, the parking as it's depicted on the current plan now shows that the parking, the access for the parking is dependent on traveling over and across lot 1. And so that would eliminate lot 2's ability to maintain independence from lot 1 or go through any changes in the future. If the lot 2 ownership changes and they decide to turn that back into a single family residence or another use within the allotted uses, their abilities to do that may be restricted in the future. They're essentially, by having access over and across and having that parking and shared parking, would encumber lot 2 in perpetuity. So it would not create a fully standalone lot, which it is our understanding of what subdivisions try to do.
Ideally, it'd be nice to have an independent lot. But again, as I tried to explain in previous meeting, that with this project, it is unique. And the fact that this building being a former church rectory, how everything was tied together on one parcel. And trying to separate it has been a challenge. But to say that this, if this were to convert to a one-family dwelling, and if these ones are in place, they still maintain a right. Will they be using it? They will have access along the northerly side. But to say that it will further encumber, that's what the intent is. To do just that, to further encumber the properties as we are trying to create this lot 2. For the benefit of each party. That's what it's about, to create these easements. So everybody's protected. And that's what we are doing. So if lot 2 is ever, converted to a single family residence. I just don't know that that's gonna happen once this, the buyer comes in and develops a 3, unit building. I just don't see it happening to go back to a one-family dwelling.
I might interject just a little bit on that too, in terms of even if it became a single family dwelling. The way that garage is set up, it's a drive-through garage, and go out both sides. So if someone puts 2 cars into a single spot, let's just say that even if it's a single dwelling, that they're not gonna come out on the church property side. In fact, we've granted easements that they have access to come out that way. So even if it was a single family, they'd have to pull out a car to get the second car out. If they're gonna just use the driveway. Could you pull up the map actually for the property, so that's a little easier to see?
Point of order, Jim, would you mind having them identify themselves for that?
Oh, they gotta be given, yeah.
Thank you.
Here, thank you. So, yeah, back to the garage, the fact that it was originally intended for roof doors on both sides. Is that they could pull in from either side, pull out both sides. So even in the single family dwelling case, if they pull both cars in this direction, and cars to the side. They're gonna want to access it, of course. They're gonna come out on the other side. So we'll let everybody truly stand alone. You know,
Realistically, it's not gonna happen because if you really.
they'll still want access to one. Again, on easements, we're granting that, just as we're granting, they're granting us the easements for the 26-foot backup lane. Because that was a big thing in the zoning department about, these are older people, they're backing up. You know, you want all the room you can have. So that's what they were concerned about that. We agree. More space we can grant by leaving those double lanes, it allows the access for. If an apartment turned in off of South Catherine Street, turned into park line where they currently do. If there was somebody backing up, there's still plenty of room for them to be able to stop and get around. Whereas if we eliminate that space, now you don't have that. Now you're blocking out into South Catherine Street. Because the lane's gonna get held up. On top of which, just one other thing too, we talk about one-way traffic. Technically speaking, on the opposite side of the church, we don't own all that property. It's Victoria Place, I believe, it's their property. How do we change that? It's a two-way entrance when I don't necessarily own that property. Completely, I own half of it.
Actually, the church is on the entire.
Okay. But yeah, that's gonna mess up. Their ingress to their facilities. So, there's a light there current.
Item number 7, recommend the applicant show remaining sewer details. Sewer details by mine are just that, they're details that show, upgrades, improvements, construction activity. We're not providing, we're not indicating or that is part of this. I think maybe what you meant to say was the, laterals on the plan view.
Is that a question to me?
Correct.
Actually, it's been discussed in the presentation in tonight's meeting that those details have been provided. You did provide the lateral details as well as the sewer manholes along South Catherine Street in the newest revision of the plan, which was submitted electronically and is not part of the clear copies that the plan has. So I believe you've addressed that comment. If you agree.
So just an overlap and sufficient, similar to the overlap that happened with the zoning board. Comments.
Number 8, is noted that the applicant must coordinate with the building inspector's office to obtain a building permit for conversion of the primary structure on lot 2 to 3 multi-family residence. We're just here to, for the subdivision, we're not here to,
Right, and that actually, that's not supposed to be a condition. That was just a reminder that if this is approved to move forward
is that,
as a subdivision plan, we're not recommending the approval, and we can't approve the conversion of the.
so is that the note on the map?
Yes.
They might change a little bit instead of the applicant to be like the owner of lot 2.
Correct, yeah, correct. That's a number to indicate that it is, future owner of the lot 2 must work. The next part of that, number 8, recommend that the applicant also coordinate with the Department of Public Works or management to determine whether any increased sewer discharge in the state's improvements in city infrastructure prior to obtaining a bill for that. So when you contacted the Department of Public Works, they did or do not indicate as to whether this particular structure meets or their infrastructure is able to handle this particular structure with a potential.
They did not indicate that it's assumed that it could, but it was requested that the applicant / future owner confirm that it can.
So for the future owner, we'll have this as a note also, that the future owner. Because this morning I talked to DPW, and they looked at this in the review, you know, the opinion was the structure, the size of the structure is such that our facilities can handle.
And it's expected that the facilities can handle it, but it was requested that it be coordinated.
So do you want that as a note also, that the future owners or the DPW?
I actually am going to defer to Shalice because she was.
So to clarify, the comment came from environmental services, not the Department of Public Works. There was no comment to include it as a note on the plan. I would just recommend that they.
The future owner?
Yeah,
Just to clarify, when you say environmental services, you're talking about, John Rock's office?
Yeah.
So basically, just want to, you know, touch upon this two-way traffic. Both on the entrance and the interior of driving aisles. I look at the amount of traffic that is in and out at CDP, for example. Two-way traffic lights in the parking lot. It works. The new vet clinic, or say your school. Driving lanes. Two-way driving lanes. It works. There's no reason that we can't, you know, with this project, have, and we're providing the 26 feet of driving lane, the backside of the perpendicular parking. Provide that as a two-way traffic, we will have a strip and a grass island that will break up that area alongside the driveway. CBA even question as to why we have a one-way traffic through that area. For purposes of emergency services, if there's an accident at the light, that intersection was tied up. Isn't it great to have that second ingress and egress on this northerly entrance? Even CBA indicated that it's desirable to have that full 26-foot backup area out of those perpendicular apartment spaces. Because of those type of drivers that are there, the drivers that are there, they need that room. So by cutting that pavement at the boundary line, it is really not an approach that we feel should be taken.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I think it was, I don't know if it was the first meeting or second meeting, but there was lengthy discussion about just traffic flow, and I thought the consensus was that it got congested and backed up at that intersection because of people coming out there. I'm not familiar with the flow, like I don't go to church on Sunday morning, but I just wanted to revisit that because I'm confused. I thought it was kind of a consensus. I didn't realize that really that's not a preference of the applicant. So I just wanted to revisit it. You're arguing that, you know, you're advocating that two-way is ideal there and that there is no issue with the road, but I thought that the people that are experienced with the site thought there was an issue there.
So I think Father tried to explain just what may happen at the light, at that light where traffic can back up.
Yeah.
And being able to have that second entrance for two-way traffic and how that can alleviate
Okay.
that backup.
I think actually what's causing the backup would be the light itself. You know, because now it's causing them to have to delay the parking lot until the sensors set off and then they can make their way out. Right now, at least from the 2 years of experience that I have doing the same master on a given weekend. They make access to both, depending on which direction they want to go. So if they're pulling out of the property and they want to go right, make the right hand turn, then most often they're coming out of that side where the traffic light is. Then other people they are coming out of the other section, making lefts going back up South Catherine. The only other exceptions to that would be, again, depend on where they decide to park. If they park on this side of the parking lot, they're gonna usually access that. And I've seen a great number of people also go the other way around, just because there's ease of backing up. I have not necessarily experienced a whole lot of issue about people getting at it, but it's like any other event when people all of a sudden leave at the same time. You've got 80 people in there, 40, 50 cars, they're all trying to exit the parking lot at the same time. It does not necessarily create, at least not to my experience, and the fact that we've not had any accidents on South Catherine would indicate that there's not obviously an issue, or it doesn't appear to be an issue of them coming out of our property to access South Catherine. I think if there was, if we were having more accidents there, then I could go, okay, maybe there's something like needs to be moved or something needs to happen, but, like I said, since 2020 being passed with the whole of everything, we've had no issues yet, there's been no fender benders or anything, so it's been operating really well. I know for my own personal use, I have a tendency to be almost exclusive on the section between the two pieces of property that we own. Just because of where I'm headed, I don't necessarily head out to the side of the light. I'm always coming back into town. So why go to the light to make that left hand turn? Again, I have not noticed it. It's not been my experience so far, whether it's between masses on the weekends or the other events that take place. So our soup supper on Tuesday nights or bingo on Mondays and Thursdays. The opportunities that where we have any given traffic, where people are parking or they're accessing, it's not seemed to have been a problem yet in terms of getting in and out. Same thing with in terms of people that are so used to, I could try and think when you talked about the one way, where do we even put signage to indicate that? Where do you put a sign that's going to also say, do not enter? That's going to even be seen before someone's already gotten out the wrong way. Which I think will create just a much bigger problem, is now they're going to drive across the park and things, trying to get out. By leaving that 26 feet of open space, there's not an issue with that. Once we constrict it, then I think we'll have a bigger problem.
Yeah, maybe this was, my recollection too, from last meeting, maybe this is order of operations, because the last meeting, I think were sent to us before you were sent to the zoning board. And so we were discussing something before the zoning board and granted that easement, since this board doesn't have the power to grant that easement. So maybe the concern was about the drive width. If that easement wasn't able to be provided. I also know that there's staff comments address a couple other things about safety and about sort of the interdependence or the independence of the two properties against each other. So I can understand where you're coming from, and I understand what you're saying too, because yes, if you are going to make that a one-way coming in off South Catherine Street, but if you're in the parking lot, how will you restrict people from coming back out of that if you're coming from the school? There's always those challenges whenever you're changing traffic patterns at any established place.
So, and I can understand a change in traffic pattern if there was a problem that exists, like, oh, we always have this problem, these people always do this, so we have an issue getting people out. But that's not the case.
Right.
So if that's back to two-way traffic, because I think also part of the idea of one way is that you have 50% less traffic.
Yeah.
That potentially could conflict with if you have two entrances to the new residential property that empty right onto that. So if you hold that you keep two-way traffic, how do we best protect the safety and access for pedestrians accessing their, so, you have a senior meeting Sunday morning, a little kid comes running out and they don't see them because they're below the trunk,
Right.
And they're backing up. So what's a good solution then to help further define or protect and enhance the pedestrian flow?
And since 2020, right, that building has not been in use. And it would now, instead of being a coordinated use with the church, it would be potentially a multi-family unit that wouldn't be associated with anyone who'd be going to the church. Dean, do you have on the plan? I don't know if we have that. I'd zoom in on that. The width of the green space you guys are proposing to add. It looks like it's about 6 or 8 feet. Yeah.
It's wider on the
On the west side, but
So Yeah, it's like 7 feet from that closest, the farthest east steps that go
Yeah.
down. I think I calculated, and then maybe a little less. You have room for like a sidewalk and a landscape buffer.
That's what I was gonna say, that's what I was wondering too, if we knew. Or if you know. I don't know, the applicant obviously is not the future owner, but. If there are no plans to continue to keep those existing entrances. It becomes, I guess, less of an issue, less of a hazard, it's mostly.
How that new ownership figures.
With this applicant, yeah.
I mean, majority of whoever's gonna reside within that is probably gonna go through the building into the garage, because it's all internal.
Yeah.
You know, but the fact that we're allowing them two lots of two set spaces in the back of the property.
Yeah.
You know, we were out there today looking at it, and the only thing that I saw that we could do. Is just a sense of, you know, markings on the pavement, no parking, you know, and just keeping that space clear.
Yeah.
Hash marks on the other side of this section through the other side of the grade space. So-
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned a sidewalk or a landscape buffer, I think you probably heard us talking at the end of the pre-meeting, which is the. Thing that I was thinking of when I was looking at the plans was the foot traffic flow to the parking spots that are located on the back of the building. You know, if that's fenced off. You're forcing the foot traffic into the driveway. Instead of maybe potentially across that lawn area. So if there's no existing sidewalk, but you're parking behind your building, you would be, even though there's an easement. You know, to a person who's walking, there's no difference, I guess, between those. So I don't know if that's addressed on, and maybe we just didn't have a detail of it.
The other question that becomes with this is. How is. It any different coming out of the residence as opposed to coming out of the parish center, coming out of the church? People are still walking through the parking lot. So.
Right, but there's a sidewalk all around the church. Before you go, you walk from the church to a sidewalk to the parking lot, you're not just church in straight into the parking lot.
On the flip side, that's also a pre-existing condition, it's not something we might site plan today.
Right.
And the church might not do that, you build a new church there.
Right.
Something you just,
Yeah, this sidewalk comes straight to the parking lot, is straddled all the way around.
in this case, you know, we're considering a. Once again, not the ideal situation, there's gives and takes on it, but. Idea that the park in the rear of this that's shared with you. How do you anticipate that pedestrian, you know, person parking back there would. Enter the home, and what are the different places they could enter? I mean, there are 2 entrances shown on the side that are within. You know, you'd have to walk down the easement area and. We grant removing it or creating lawn, they walk across the lawn now, I mean. What would the plan be for that?
They only have 3 entrances to that house all on the church side of the property.
Right.
And the front doors, 2 side entrances, so they're gonna have to come down that section along that way, but. At the same thing, time. You think about the time of year that we're in currently. Once that person starts shoveling snow, they're gonna eliminate all of their so-called walking paths. Where are they gonna walk? They're gonna walk on our driveway.
I mean, honestly, I'm sort of leaning towards. The questions Abby's asking and. Given that we are in the consideration of 2-way traffic there. I'm almost wondering whether, you know, where the zoning board was leaning. Whether we're creating a pedestrian aisle. Along
And
that.
our painted pedestrian aisle.
Right, correct, something that's clarifies as pedestrian aisle, you know, maybe it gives you the full 26-foot width, but you have a clear pedestrian way that gets you to all entrances to the home.
Which would be in the area between the green space and building.
Well,
Yeah.
Whatever makes sense.
I'm almost questioning whether,
Here,
I'm questioning whether, you know, a section of that becomes your pedestrian walkway instead of this little sliver of green space.
cool,
And maybe
that's intent.
you add some more green space at the back of the behind the garage. You know, this is. The behind this garage and the parking, as I see, is a potential issue in the
Yes,
future with
and
new residents.
More asphalt.
The driving lane is going to be here, okay?
Yeah.
Now, there could be a painted walkway along to here for these two parking stalls. Okay, that brings you over to the garage, over to the, I'm sorry, yeah, from the garage to here, to the, right, to the front of the building, yeah. Where you're directing the foot traffic, these parking stalls.
And you're giving some level of warning for the people that there is a pedestrian,
Right.
there are many people.
So just have painted there, more stuff down the side.
I have a
It'd
question.
be nicer if it was something else, but I don't think it is.
How much can you do like define as like impose as like site design and layout and landscaping on it, on this future property versus what like a future owner, if they got a building permit, would have to like implement or develop for access to the building? Like, what's the,
Yeah, I feel like it would be on the future owner, wouldn't it?
yeah, like whether they paint lines or
Or not.
invest in a sidewalk with a little curb, you know,
Right.
for, I don't know.
That would, so to convert this, it's a single family structure now, it comes to the church choosing. To convert that to a three-family, they simply have to apply for a building permit. And so it wouldn't necessarily trigger, I don't think,
And the proposal is that that space is included in the easement, which is being defined now as part of a subdivision. And any modifications to that area that are made now prior to the easement subdivision would then ride with the deed and then remain. No matter what that future property owner does, or at least need to be negotiated with the church as the other holder of the easement.
If he decides, the future decides to make changes to the property, with a three-family dwelling, would that trigger the site plan review?
If he makes
You just said
changes,
no.
if he makes changes that are inconsistent
With what?
the approved site.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. So basically, you know, if we provide that, striped painted walkway from here, which is outside of the travel lane, and we have a white line that indicates where that travel lane is, which is an extension of this green space, okay? And if we had some type of, designated area for that foot traffic, for those two parking stalls, that brings them to the buildings, which is outside of the travel lane, that we should designate that. You know, that's something that we can show.
The other factor that holds the new owner, to this site plan is that they won't get a certificate of occupancy if there's inconsistencies with the site plan, the approved site plan, and the occupancy of the building.
From my perspective, you know, if I didn't have to take out any blacktop on that side, even that little sliver of green space, then I would paint all the lines so they're not a problem. That's, I think it creates the walk path that you're talking about without compromising like, okay, well, now, it's a little 6 foot green. That really accomplishing anything as opposed to setting out the boundaries with the draw lines.
I think my concern about just painting on lines is for the parts of the year where you don't see the lines.
So that's either.
Well, if
right,
like
but if it's
green-
elevated.
I'm talking about if you have a curb or not.
Yeah.
That's what I would envision,
Yeah, that's what I was envisioning too.
just degrees of protection. Really. Yeah.
So would it make more sense instead of putting that green, suppose the green space, since because it were within compliance with the whole rest of the green space on the rest of the property, it meets the code. That instead of taking out that blacktop, just actually the proper curb.
Was that green space designed to be at grade level with the pavement of the parking lot?
And, but it wasn't really discussed in detail.
Right, yeah.
And since all the rest of the lawn is all in level with the pavement,
Yeah, but makes sense. I mean, yeah, that's what
I would not raise.
right.
I think for purposes of snow removal, so when you're gonna deal with up there, that, having something flush, rather than having mountains of green space, maybe more problematic than having something that's flush.
Yeah, I guess that's what I keep coming back to is, was the staff comment in relation to the green space requirement from the code? Or was it, you know, in response to the pedestrian safety concerns at that area? Because that's where like a raised, right, means, okay, no car's gonna come in and hit you. Yes, you can't snow plow it, but it gives pedestrian access, delineates further to pedestrian safety. As opposed to if you're just putting lush grass in, that might be done to meet the arbitrary zoning requirement.
Right.
Real quickly though, before we, so. You have a minimum open space of 45%. Dean, and I'll ask you this question. It looks like your variance for open space was because lot number 1. It went further into deficiency, so that's what you got your variance for. But in lot number 2, you're at 45.1%, which I'm assuming this strip helps you to stay. So just so you're, just make,
So basically, in providing curb. You could have. Like if there were, wooden timbers. That created the curb. As a means of having that vision. But that it was intent, yes, to provide that, it brought us up, but it was also intended to provide a break from the travel lane to the pedestrian traffic. That is very. What was it? With that, it brought us up to 45.
I mean, I understand the curve, but if you have it in the back of my mind, I just keep thinking to myself, okay, that's great in terms of will the tenants of that building clean out their walk path area?
Well,
Or will they walk out into the
probably the
parking lot?
building owners.
Or will they do that? Will they just still just come out to my parking lot to access their cars? You know, so I mean, at least right now, without the curve, in the process of plowing, we're gonna remove it. And some will help keep it open. Once it's on the other side, then it's not church's responsibility. Currently, we take care of it, because I follow the whole parking lots. But any obstruction of that possibility now creates a situation that becomes potentially hazardous.
That was one of the questions we had the last time. Maintenance of the easement areas, who's gonna maintain them? To what degree of safety?
I said, right now, the two-way traffic, I'm gonna maintain it because that's how I get people in and out of my property. But we have to start putting curbs in, that's on the other side, and it's very hard to be able to do it. But in a practical sense and a safety sense, makes more sense to not necessarily put in barriers per se.
Well, barriers don't change the property line or the nature of the easement, right?
Correct.
So you still would have some responsibility for what's on the other side of that curve.
Since we use it more for the sense of allowing us access to parts.
Correct, so it's for access. Isn't not access.
It's for,
Got it, yeah,
if I may.
for driving access, for
Yeah.
transportation, yeah, for driving access.
Yeah, the two main,
Right.
the proposal is to maintain.
So
Which
and
would at the edge of the green space. That's proposed now.
Right.
and that easement covers pedestrian access as well.
It was worded for, to make it general, gives you more protection, gives you broader use, so it was for. What was I had,
This is easement A we're talking about?
it is easement. Actually, this section,
Yeah, sorry.
Pop in.
So I guess the question would be, can we eliminate for vehicular traffic if we're keeping it in general?
Yeah. Right, yeah, I don't mean, you couldn't make the change. Well, actually, the foot traffic. The foot traffic is gonna be outside. Foot traffic for lot 2. We're gonna have vehicle traffic for easement C. Easement A.
I mean, if we don't designate any area, we need to sort of open the way people walk. They really should have the whole easement area as potential for ingress and egress.
Well, the thing is, that's what we're trying to do, is eliminate the traffic in that travel.
I agree, I'm just saying the way it's proposed now, but. I think we're coming to some type of consensus that some type of pedestrian. Access to that side of the building that's somehow protected, somehow delineated.
We could have, so it'd be more so with easement C. I think there's the easement you're referring to, easement C or,
I was referring to the one that's easier from reading the plan, right? It's easement A, it's just south of the existing garage, and wider, it's,
correct.
It's sort of overlap.
I guess they do overlap.
They do.
There, yeah.
Easement A is that portion of lot 2 for the Vancouver church.
Yeah,
Easement C is that portion, for the benefit of lot 2.
right.
I mean, if you create a pedestrian access that's on lot 2, let's say. And someone from the church walks across because they're gonna go to one of the 5 designated spaces in the back of the church. Both easements.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, we could, could include vehicle or pedestrian traffic.
Are those going with?
No, it's not a big deal, because you're right in the sense that, certain church, coming out of church, they're parked into one of the 5 stalls, and they're gonna walk over there, so, they are going to. How they're gonna access it, it's kind of hard to control whether somebody's gonna wanna be walking with their vehicle, but we could have it in there where, the church, as part of retaining that, for that, vehicle traffic, also including pedestrian traffic. I don't know.
Walk straight to the parking lot.
Straight to the parking lot to go, yeah,
Because you're gonna have all the other spots that are already there,
right.
it's not just those 5.
Is there an entrance, is there an entrance to the church on the north side, or is the main entrance still on the east side?
Atwood Jog is a,
Yeah,
well, there is an entrance, it's not a main church, it's just for,
The secondary entrance by the church.
on the south side.
the south side would be the secondary entrance, the main entrance would be the eastern side on the south side. Yeah, and then there's nothing on the north side.
No, there is.
There is, but it's the basement,
To the basement, not to the, that's what, okay, that was my question. Yeah, because to your point, right, of, okay, we could draw a path here, right? You just draw a straight line from wherever those parking spaces are that would be on the easement to the main entrance of the church, and that's where the people are gonna walk, right? And that's, I think, what we're saying on lot 2 as well, which is draw a straight line from those 2 parking spaces that are designated to the main entrance to the home, to the residence, and say, are you gonna cross paths with cars that are coming in and out of events while you are trying to get in there, to your home. So that's, I think, where,
They should
question.
actually. When we're now, having,
so having a fence there, you know, to get to the parking spots on the backside of the home. Creates a barrier, right, which forces them into the bathroom is.
something like we. What's on is a. Pedestrian designated area here.
Yeah.
There's park spaces.
Yes.
Here.
Yeah.
On the property of lot 2.
Yeah.
It would be outside of any easement area, outside of any. Traffic area coming in.
Right.
And nothing to say that they park, they don't walk around and come out this way. By having a pedestrian, as you were suggesting,
Yeah.
it gives them lot 2, the right to be utilizing. You know, that area for pedestrian traffic. To get to their walkway. It's the.
Is this hash area, is this easement area? Because I think
This is, yes, this is the music area.
because I think I was looking at this open area here, in here, that's. Placement of that area. Okay.
So being
Misunderstood that.
in the use of that though. There may be people in the future home that would walk all the way to the front of the home. And to there, depending on however the future developer breaks this house up.
Sure, yeah.
That could be the entrance to unit number 1.
There is, and I was asking the father about this, there is another, entrance in the garage to the structure.
There a man door on that garage, or is there just garage doors on either side?
Garage doesn't do so that actually the door coming in on this side here. That should into the garage, so there's a kind of a hallway there. Right, there's a door right there.
Okay.
And one of the things within the house itself, and again, I have no idea how the new owners would split it up.
Sure.
But technically speaking, there's a central hallway. And there's stairs at the front and stairs at the back that access that, so it makes more sense, at least if I was doing it. But it's well on this side, I'm willing on that side, and do whatever you're doing.
Oh, the second and third floor, right, yeah, okay.
So, you know, because of the central hallway, you've got egress at front and back, which would need fire code, I would assume. So, either the walkway, I can point that out. So, again, how they're gonna come in, you know, if they come into that and it's breaks it that way, they can come in through here, to the house. Access the main apartments, the staircase. Sure. That's the problem, yeah, that's not my goal, once you break that house up.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, that clears up my misunderstanding of the, these are back. So the big plan's coming in. Yeah.
And there is 2. Basically, that's a through garage and 2 ways. And they could come in off your side, or they could go in off the other driveway and they could exit. Either way, depending on which way they make.
Right. Yeah, if there's multiple tenants, I'm gonna assume they're gonna go out both sides. No matter which side first, or how the owner decides to do existing apartments with this lot.
We're going to split inside.
Sure, you have to split it up for their own, it's the church, I think this was part of the same conversation we had last week. That we didn't know, does the church, do snow removal or any other maintenance on that northern driveway that's on the. This is,
Yeah.
on, it's shared with the homeowner next door.
Oh, maybe this driveway over here?
No, this one, the
No,
shared one.
no, they do nothing at all with that.
Okay, yeah, so then if it's winter time, it's just closed.
Well, there's people who own, or live in that other house.
Okay.
So
They
they're driving on.
maintain it.
They maintain, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna listen to this point,
Right,
because again, it's nothing to do with church.
sure, exactly, yeah.
Direction for some reason, this unit, we're still different, we use. the property
It's usually
outside.
outside, exactly, yeah.
Way back when there were multiple priests living in it, and the religious order, whatever it was, they. They use both sides.
Yeah.
The difference being right now with the new owner that's required apartment versus casual use.
Right.
In the section of area between the former rectory and the proposed green strip, is that all green space now?
Is,
Split.
it's,
There, should we see a picture of that?
it's pretty well,
And so it's, well, actually, found that I was shoveling today, so I found there was grass there too. Yeah, and that's, you got the little picture, because it's no way to really kind of.
I wasn't sure if we had.
I was a little surprised too when I was shoveling. All the grass.
Up there.
Now the other side.
Yeah, that.
So city grass.
yeah, there's. Correct, it's grass here, but I think in this area here,
It's not,
there's pavement.
that's all.
So it's a mixture of all. So from the,
So from the existing door, from those existing stairs, you'd be coming about, say, maximum of 7.5 feet off of those stairs with some sort of strip, some sort of green strip there. Is that right from the plan?
I don't know if it's 7.5 feet. But it'll be closer to, a 4 to 5 foot, 5 foot.
Okay,
5 foot back, 20.7.
oh, okay, thank you, yeah.
I guess my biggest thing is that the last job in the building, which looks like it's just past the last entrance, about halfway in the middle of the building. From there back to the building, to the face of the garage, to the parking, that's all paved.
Correct. Correct.
So. And once again, trying to get past this whole green space, we'd be creating a little green space buffer with asphalt on one side and then asphalt between the green space buffer and pavement, like it.
It's not a driving lane, it's not, traffic and serve as.
Within, and I was gonna say, within our recommendations, I think. We gotta clean that thought up a little bit and.
Yeah.
Discuss with the applicant,
Yeah, I guess I assumed that was gonna be contiguous with other green
it's
space,
not.
but it's not, no, it's not clear, I don't know what the surfaces are.
And again, I think in part because of the,
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that's,
foundation where their pavement is there to direct stormwater coming off and you can see. Rough line. Dropping into the pavement and bringing it over to the chest.
Gas line entry is also right there too. Natural gas for the building, straight in there.
I
You're
guess,
saying the natural gas comes in through the garage side?
No, right in that space. Right out here. So the garage is back here, so natural gas is there with laptop.
I mean, once again, remember. As we're looking at this is a perfect view, you know, for us. If anybody's considering the green space buffer strip, think about this. A little bit.
If you go back a picture, that's.
yeah.
That.
I mean, I think when I saw that addition of the green space, I was thinking more holistically that it was like gonna be part of a site redesign and included like more, just like grass or like a site.
I sort of envisioned it that way
Oh,
too,
yeah.
but then as we talked about two
Yeah.
garages and.
Yeah. Right,
Even with putting it in there, because I think it speaks to those sentences that you were talking about before, we still want to leave the pavement there, because that's how the, in those sentences.
because there's a line connecting the edge of the garage in that. Green space, and like there was a differentiation between surfaces, like maybe that's a dimension.
Yeah, it looks like a yard.
Mhm. Like the dimension line from the corner of the garage to the property.
Sure, I thought that was.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah, as you're saying, where the word speed in the letter 4,
Yeah,
that is, yeah, that's a line that should be hidden. There was part of the line, that was used as the edge of the, open space. So you would create
non-proper,
the hard line to create, well, in this case, it must have been just probably a line that was drawn and it was put on right there, that should be hidden, but yeah, that,
Yeah, so,
doesn't represent it,
right,
other than my calculations.
yeah, I mean, so right now, if you're backing up, you're like, whoa, I got 30 feet to back into,
Oh.
I got all kinds of space. Because there's just no definition to that 26-foot driveway. Right?
If you're backing out the garage,
Part of the.
I'm talking about if I'm parked at the church. We talked about
At
the,
the front end
Oh.
on the eastern side or the western side?
the western side.
Okay,
should,
yeah.
yeah, should.
I'm looking at
Or
this.
right
part.
across. from-
Here,
Talking
where,
about where the door is into the
Back.
house from the back. There's no defined lot.
correct. Should we see back to that, overview,
So that's the safety concern.
I should be putting it right here. So back out of here, they have more than 26 feet, yeah, more than 26
Right,
feet.
so like, how do we, stop traffic?
So
That's like telling all these traffic people, where to go, especially when it changes, that they've been accustomed to for 40 years. But I just don't know that somebody is gonna need access of 26 feet to come out of there and then back stop and then pull and go forward.
So let me ask this, and this is something for the board and consider. If we flip to the view looking in the driveway. If we had striped pedestrian access, that's the width of the sidewalk, following the existing paving drive all the way in. And then as the asphalt widens out, that continues with the striping as no parking, wherever you want to label it. No access zone to the back, to the rear where the is all the way back to here.
Here,
To the shared parking space.
have
To the shared
to
parking.
have no parking.
No parking, it's hatched out, and then you have a aisle, or you have a pedestrian access aisle that's along the edge. Correct. All the way to the sidewalk. And it's fully aligned, it's straight, it's not jogging with the building, it's just, that's a straight line. And as the asphalt continues into the building, that's just all hatched out, there's no parking. One of my other concerns is that you don't have residents parking in this section right here, outside the garage, parking these asphalt.
But the parking, that no parking zone will be along the edge of the pedestrian traffic.
But I'm just thinking.
That way, because otherwise, we come up to the building. Up the building, I mean, if they're walking off here, they're gonna walk across that anyways.
They can walk across the no parking. Or something.
Okay, yep,
You know what I mean, but then along the buildings where you have a limited width, you're defining something that's the width of the sidewalk. Along that backside of the drive. I mean,
So for
Okay.
clarification, with this proposed pedestrian strip / no parking area, would that run on the inside, where the green space strip is depicted?
no,
Or would
it,
it be
it would follow the existing pavement the way it is today. So basically, see that, like on the sidewalk, where the pavement touches the sidewalk. Wait, that's a 4-foot sidewalk.
Where the arrow is.
Yeah, where the arrow is. You put your line right there. Oh, you got a point? There we go. So right there to start, be whatever the width of the sidewalk is to match out here, and then you have pedestrian access that goes the width. All the paving on the inside of that width would be hatched out, because it'll start getting wider as you get to the back, it'd be hatched out, marked as no parking.
Would you just measure basically from the edge of the back of the parking stall north of the church to the 26 feet? Kind of do an offset line, 26
Well-
feet, and then that becomes the.
This is where it's a consideration. It does give the planning board under this 26 feet rule, those standards may be modified by the planning board as part of the site plan. Subdivision, but I mean, once again. I think that,
So you're saying give priority to that width and the resulting lane is what it is.
we're not getting. I tend to agree with the applicant about this one-way deal. I don't like to do changes, and especially without a study of the light. You know, I'd have more engineering study of that before just saying, oh, we want that as a subdivision.
Yeah, I agree.
With that said, though, you know, if we're gonna designate pedestrian, I think you just designate it. You know, people that are parking here, it's not the perfect standard, but at least they have a designated understanding that there's pedestrians there. And they still have the 26 feet to back up and move without going into a green space. It's one solution that, you know, I might be able to wrap around, you know, it's perfect.
What's the actual distance between the curb and the sidewalk at the street?
Oh, you mean here,
From the curb to the sidewalk, yeah. I mean, if this pedestrian walkway is in the driving, today's driving lane, should there be consideration of narrowing that access? Because does somebody have?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
I thought that was on the last, well, that was on the last print, that was because it was being considered for the one way, that they were gonna reduce the width of it. I agree, because I think you're right, if otherwise, if you're letting. You're keeping that access in the same way, yeah, so I think if you're gonna do that, or if you're gonna eliminate the green space. Because doesn't really make sense in the middle of two asphalt, you know, the green island. An easier way to maybe do that is to change the width of that that entrance apron to funnel people away from the house and into
So essentially that,
sort of lot one.
that intersection right there, we did a 4 foot, if, let's say it's 4 feet width. You'd move that over 4 feet and then
Continue out,
and then
That gets.
layer the drive.
So just,
Potentially make it the width of like 88.
yeah, I guess whatever the language would be for the board, right, I think it's not, is it for the board to determine whatever the traffic calming pedestrian traffic separation is, I don't wanna put that in the language of the motion. Because then we would say you need to install this type of thing, but I think the considerations that we're making are, if you wanna keep the two-way, because that's existing, how do you separate expected increased pedestrian traffic there, I guess, is that's what I'm asking you, Jim.
The only way I see it is that you know, allow for some relief in terms of this standard. You know, instead of, if that's 26 feet, you'll have 22 feet of travel lane, you know, that walk, right? Or it does allow the board to give some relief on that. It's a little narrow, but it's not. It's
Fine.
you know,
Highways are expensive.
Can park on the highway though.
Again, it does give, you know, the person at the church the ability and the space though, without this green space buffer on someone else's property, they might back over, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
By the looks of the traffic on the grass, they do that now.
I think the third level plan.
I didn't get the turn was small thing that back up. So basically, what I'm saying is, what we create here, we can move the statement forward to, or put the statement back as such. You know, in the back.
Yeah,
That way we're not directing traffic into the pedestrian.
right, yeah.
Um,
Yes, that is a nice sprinkle there on the other side too.
But it may be a little more bottleneck, as you're saying at the beginning, but as we go into the site, it will widen out. It can show that.
We should be concerned if we simply said to match the existing city sidewalk with. Or. Any ADA standards dictated by building permits. By building department.
I feel either one would get us to where we want to be. If we match the current, the desired city sidewalk width, for current standards, that would be better than the existing widths. I believe the existing width right here is about 4 feet wide.
Okay.
So that would be okay in this instance. Other areas of the city, not so much.
Match the adjacent existing.
Yeah.
And that should-
That would be better.
And the only reason I put or is just, the time of building permit or whatever, building department has some other comments. And then any pavement between that delineation line of where the pedestrian access starts, any pavement beyond that 4 feet towards the building would be hatched out as, do not park or.
At least currently, because that is the main egress, you're not parking there anyway.
True,
It's not from anything.
true.
Yeah, the best way to make it not parking is to keep it two-way, and then that way, you're just gonna hit your car hit the first time.
I'm more referring to that section, like,
Where it jumps in.
Okay.
towards the end there, there's plenty of space that I can see multiple residents parking there.
Sure.
It's considered a red bike.
Yeah.
And actually, I have no issue with that either, because protect people backing out that they're not gonna back into something.
Yes.
Because I've had to say to people, yeah, that's not really a fucking spot. Even though nobody else owns it yet. I've said it.
It's probably.
So it isn't used as a parking spot.
And we're not getting into drainage. One percent of drainage off the roof. We're accommodating for pedestrians.
It can be plowed.
Wow. We don't have this weird screen strip now, that the one thing that does need to be addressed is where we will make up that little additional amount of
Actually,
green
if
space.
this is a lost ledge, that can be included as part of this, so what's gonna happen if I'm doing that, this jumps 45.1, is part of that.
Does that?
There's no, because of it being pervious versus impervious. The green, the green, the way the parking standards are written. They use the terminology of make it pervious.
But on the open space, you could include in
The walkway as a open space.
I was thinking that.
Right, there you go. Versus coverage. Two little balls there.
I think that is a much better approach. It is difficult, but
So it's retiring and block up, but they really want to tear up. So those access both ways.
it does commit the body. I see we get it. Walkways,
Yeah, we'll leave that open walkways, it says it does not include driveways. I guess,
converted.
yeah, I guess. Yeah, they're just make sure we designate that.
Well,
The walkway itself is not part of the driveway. the board recognizes that the driveway is whatever the remaining width is into the parking stall. The exit the pedestrian walkway. If that's 22 feet, if it's 21 feet, you know, it goes back.
As it goes back, I'm seeing that here, but
I think once again, I was just doing that, the board just should recognize that as you have that ability under 360-26 C2 or C1.
it's in there.
We have a question.
Do you want this to be in both on the plan?
The pedestrian,
This hatched area, which is intended to be a pedestrian area and a no parking area, not be considered a driveway.
I think the board should recognize that, but I don't know that you can have both. According to the definition of open space is not to have a drive. So I don't think you can consider it both.
We will designate it on the plan view and have notation of the walkway. And then a separate area designated as a no parking area.
And then you'll have the drive, parking, the edge of walkway, and that's where we have to recognize that we're not gonna. For say after 26 feet, if you want to consider this open.
Say that again, I'll make sure.
Open space says that the driveway is not supposed to be within it.
Correct.
So in that regard, technically at 90 perpendicular parking, you're supposed to have 26 feet. And once the board recognizes it as a lesser standard or less, which we can, I'm just saying the board recognize that, so we're doing it in the ordinance. And then you can delineate that walkway on the plan. For the open space, it's a walkway, a driveway, it's not a.
I am looking to, as I get further away from South Pastor Street, that walkway is gonna start coming closer to the building.
Yeah.
And get further away from the actual driving, that 26-foot mark, the driving.
Yeah. So you're saying you'll have 26 feet by the time you're on the west side, but closer to that Catherine, it might be down to 24.
Correct.
For the driveway.
Yes. Yes.
Give it 24, give it 23.
Yeah.
It's like,
I think you probably want to keep it, you know, consistent, perpendicular to those spaces for a certain distance back. You know, on the building until maybe you get towards the garage. It's yeah,
Yeah,
so it's very sort of clean.
correct.
Straight line.
Yeah,
You know how, you know, I'm your guys do.
yeah. Thoughts?
I have a question outside of this. It deals with the 7 parking spaces. What is the actual agreement? Because you can't retain the right of use over somebody else's property. How have you resolved that matter?
No, you can't reserve your right.
Well,
To an easement on it.
yeah, but you're in our zoning ordinance. Okay, you're required to have a special use permit when you provide parking off your property. I'm curious what your agreement with these people are. You retained it through an easement or? Because I heard conversation about we're allowing them to use the other 2 parking spaces. Not quite certain as to what the agreement with these 7 spaces are.
Actually, I don't. There isn't one yet because we were waiting for rezoning.
Okay,
So until we were approved, so this is, now we can go into contract with with that language in there. Because like you were saying, that exceed our lots end up down in their property line.
Yeah,
So we have to get it to, still we have access to these spots. So that's gonna have to come up with the contracts.
I mean, if they're allowing you to use them. Probably not gonna be, a big deal, but when you memorialize it by putting it, in an easement or as part of a deed. Then it may create other issues, and to avoid that, I think
Well, we are putting it in there.
but the agreement, we're having it on site. But the language they use, I mean, if they said these spaces will be. Used during their services, or I don't know what language
But professionally,
they're using,
professionally accessible by the church. For whatever purposes.
yes,
Yeah, and then I think that, right, professionally used.
yeah,
And
because they
that-
only extracted that from the calculation, so. No reason to be penalized a couple of times,
And the new potential owner, who's waiting on all this, doesn't know where any of this stands because it hasn't been decided where. So we're gonna say to them, okay, this is what you have, this is how many spaces, this is how many spaces you needed to be able to have the property for 3 dwellings.
Yeah.
So giving you these 2 spaces, that's how the property line. Welcome to that, and then maybe whatever, how that is, then that's what.
All of that. Yeah. With all your questions.
without seeing the language of the easement is. Dean's gonna create some language, or the attorneys, or.
That's the attorney's for you. All I do is I get with the draft,
But
is
as
the update. But brought up, in regards to those parts.
Yeah.
Now, make completion of the matter of perpetual use.
So what you're saying is because it's easement, it's not a title piece of property to the church.
yes.
They might be able to do it through
Say
easement,
use to it.
but not. But they would need a special use permit if it's like a separate piece of property
Yes. Yes.
that was in there.
Exactly.
Okay. No, this staff. Right. Okay. Well, have any other?
I think, just, as a final. Wrap up and looking for the board to, take a two-way traffic on that road, the entrance. And including a showing of the plan to show that 4-foot sidewalk to match existing coming off from the existing sidewalk on South Capitol Street. That goes back in a straight line to the point where it will angle more toward the garage. Close to the garage, and then back far enough to serve those 2 parking stalls in the back part of the property. And then also that would be shown as a hashed area designated for that walkway. And then also a second hatched area that will show no parking, which will be between the edge of the walkway and that driveway. There will be an area closer to South Catherine Street where there is a good evening for that. Right. That you have it right close, as you get further away from South Catherine. And we will have a designation of no parking, and have it hatched, and you'll know it, between.
You catch the narrowing of the flare.
And the narrowing on the entrance off on the driving lane on South Capitol Street, the narrow that, this paper,
Yes.
basically, to match the new edge of the walkway and then start out to the existing curb line.
Other comments or anything here? Staff is generally resolve your comments and your administrative comments.
There were administrative comments that probably still, I would recommend still maintaining, but the majority of the comments will take care of. And the additional comments are, they're minor, they could be comment, staff comment 7, which is, essentially already addressed in the electronic form. That I just recommend that staff comment 7 get carried forward. And then revision of staff recommendation 8.
Correct, and then on number 8, staff comments 8, we're gonna add 2 notes and a map. Where the new owner for lot 2 to coordinate with those his office. And then also as 8, I'll say 8A or 8B will be a note very similar. And that would be with coordinate the DPW and or the environmental management. In regards to the determination of the increased sewer discharge necessities for this on the line. Okay.
I do have one more addition, and I don't think it was addressed yet in your statement, team. For the easements to, I believe it was settled to eliminate vehicular traffic. So it includes.
To include pedestrian traffic. Vehicle and pedestrian.
Are we adding pedestrian to that or just eliminating vehicular traffic? So it's more general.
So I go back to your comment being about general is better sometimes, but
Correct.
you know,
Correct. We'll remove vehicle.
Right. That's not good with that.
It's an additional, condition to remove vehicular traffic from the easement language. All easement. For the ingress and egress. Over across the.
Some of those these are payroll are, we're gonna correct to eliminate the vehicle traffic. But for example, easement A, which is that backup area, it is specific to the vehicle traffic. Okay. But we will look at that and make the appropriate changes to each of those easement numbers.
doesn't doesn't that even A, though? Wouldn't that address the discussion where we had someone walk out of church and recognize that there's a walking path over on lot number 2 and they walk across there with that cover?
The second part of it. Part of the second part, but the first part of that is specific, that 7.5 foot, about approximately 7.5 foot, is specific to the back area. Well, I know what you're saying, yeah,
It would cover both. I mean, once again, I
Right.
think he's been able.
well, I'll look at that, and make sure that, yeah. There's something else to do. Potential provision involved in that.
With the elimination of the small grassy area, I don't recall, I think you answered the question, I don't remember what the answer was. Does that put you below 45%?
That area, can you go back to, oh, this area here.
Yeah.
Was initially to be a grass area.
Yep.
We are converting this to a walkway.
Yep.
That will come back here, then angle and go back to these parking stalls. That walkway area then comes in under that open space.
Okay, but hauling the walkway, it is maintained.
It's
as open
more than
space.
45 cars.
So you're gonna increase actually.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Well, if there's no further comments from board or applicant, we do have a public hearing associated with this project. We'll open the public hearing. Have anybody else from the public here? Is there anybody? No? Okay, then, move to close the public hearing. We do have a,
Sorry.
oh, okay. We do have a, seeker, part one. Go through the part of the-
For anyone watching or attending, I will repeat question of the speaker part of 2 form. If no response is heard, I will check no or small impact may occur. Otherwise, if the board is differently, they will engage with. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that caused the establishment of a critical environmental area? Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? Will the proposed action impact existing public or private water supply? Will the proposed action impact existing public or private wastewater treatment facility? Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, for example, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? Part 3 will be completed before information is determined.
Thank you. So we'll complete part 1 and part 2. We do have a proposed resolution 22-11A. Motions. Oh, I apologize. 22. 15A. Sorry. This is 11A. Agenda.
I'm sorry, I'm just.
22-15A is the proposed secret resolution.
Yeah, I move to adopt speaker resolution 22-15.
By Abby, do I have a second? Second by Rick. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Jim Abdullah,
Yes.
Rick Perry,
Yes.
Tom Concert,
Yes.
Kurt Burbidge,
Yes.
Addie Davis. Yes.
Okay. Now we have a resolution 22-15B.
So before we make a move on that, we'll check question. Resolved paragraph B. Per with the said letter and all of them listed therein, Should that be amended, again, in comments 3, 4, 5, and 6?
I think it should, it's easier. Yeah. I think that, and include the additional. Conditions. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. So, our discussion was, that this resolution, should be amended in the, at the very end. And let it be further, and let it further be resolved, that this is amended to, eliminate staff comments. 3, 4,
3, 4, 5, and 6.
and yes, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then include the additional conditions as discussed tonight.
This section here, you're.
Yes.
So basically, except for,
So under resolved paragraph, the first resolved paragraph E, right now it says concur with the said letter and all items listed therein. That should be amended to remove staff comments 3, 4, 5, and 6. For the discussion tonight. And then under, and let it be further resolved, add the condition of adding all the conditions.
Right, I tracked to the wrong. Should be consent review.
and the other conditions that we outlined, I have, keeping the two-way traffic. Developing a 4-foot pedestrian. Delineated area from sidewalk to the rear parking, the full rear parking location. All pavement areas between the building and that 4-foot pedestrian walkway would be hatched out, there's no parking. Requested the apron, entering be narrowed to the new lane width inside of the pedestrian walk. That's the list I had, it was additional ads.
And then it needs more language. I request that you use. The language will eliminate the preferred traffic.
Or, yes. Which the applicants have worked on.
Right.
So the language for all. Any other items that we missed in that? Everybody that wants to make a motion. Then I think at this point, we've outlined the amended language for the resolution, and we've added those additional conditions as part of the discussion.
Give it a shot.
Yeah.
Rookie, but give it a shot based on what you said. Make a motion to adopt subdivision plan resolution 22-15B. Including discussion from the board. To replace staff comments 3 through 6. I think they're
And add the additional comment.
and add the additional comments, yeah. From highlighting.
Yeah, I would remove comments 3 through 6. I would recommend.
Sorry, recommend removing items 3 through 6, sorry, I said replace instead of remove, yes, remove items 3 through 6. And adopt the changes recommended by the board.
Okay. So a motion, do I have a second? Second, any further discussion?
Just a quick note, because I want to put it on the record, I intend to vote for this, because I think you found a pretty workable solution. I think we need to look at the open space. Or at the open space ordinance and calculations in the future, because I don't think the intention of open space is as we're using it in this case to find the solution that we found. And I think that probably it would reduce the open space on this site if we took it out to below the 45% and you see variance, which I think is silly in this case, because you're gonna be at like 44.9. So I think this is a really workable solution, but I think we're mischaracterizing open space a bit and need to look at the ordinance and look about the future.
Very common.
Yeah.
So if there's no further comments, roll call.
Rick Barry,
Yes.
Tom Cosgrove,
Yes.
Kurt Burbidge,
Yes.
Abby Ginsburg,
Yes.
Jim Abdullah.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Right, that's not a good motion, thank you.
I'm getting out of the park. Not even shoot it. So now, I'm not knocking out the park. That was good.
Don't want me. It's inside the park on an arrow.
Needs a degree.
Yeah, that's right, yeah, that's right.
So, we do have any, staff updates.
Yeah, there's a few, for now. One of the board codes, good night, thank you. Want to let the board know that, last week at the full council meeting, they wanted to adopt the local waterfront revitalization plan, the, updated comp plan and zoning updates, and allow those to move forward to their super processes. And then this week, we will have a soft kickoff for the zoning update. And we're looking to solidify our planning budget. Any questions? Any comments?
Members.
I'd like to mention that Tom Cosgrove was officially a full-fledged.
Oh, yes, thank you. That did happen last week.
Yes.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you, yeah, thank you. Really was good.
We are still looking for two
We
members,
are.
and that's still an active search.
So we had, the council had a pretty full agenda, the last meeting. But I'm going to circle back around to that and after we email, for additional.
So I know that I did run into that at one point. They don't have an active list at the moment.
No, reason.
So. Which any of you know,
Forward to you, thanks.
Yeah.
yes, if anybody has, anybody who might be interested.
Yeah.
For that planning staff.
Is there any are there any kind of maybe, I guess, are we looking for anyone with different types of background, like in terms of targeting who one would?
I think when you and I came on, the listing said that they were especially looking for wards 1 and 2, because there's under participation in there. So I don't know what kind of relationship the planning board and the planning department has with like the council, but there's a council
Right.
member from those departments. It seems logical then that we would request that they reach out to their constituents.
And that's
In
what
other words,
we are trying to work out. Yeah.
yeah,
Definitely. And while it is hoped that we can get representation for those who work, it's not required.
sure.
So, and at this point in time, I think we have to involve.
Yeah.
To all
Yeah.
boards and all interested people, bodies.
Yeah.
Who would serve well on the board, and I think that's the question here, it's like.
I was gonna say, but at this point, I think. Just identifying someone who's interested, and then the planning staff and the mayor's office will go through. Those other requirements, so, between board location and qualifications and that kind of thing.
We did mention Jacob Avery a while ago.
He was last.
Visited me. Administrator.
Yeah.
He would be one or two.
Yeah, I know, he said he was, I think he just said he was running the council, so I don't know how that will affect if he's gonna run. If you were to become a councilor, I'm assuming you would also get on board.
Yeah.
Right, so, interesting, I thought.
He takes great, you know.
About them too, yeah.
So, if you're thinking, there's no, if you have any ideas for
And honestly,
people our way.
honestly, the zoning board is short as well, so they're more interested in zoning. Planning, you know, it's again, any interested thing, you know.
Yes.
You're telling us to jump ship and.
Yeah.
It's a wait. There, it's a salary bump. That's it.
Anything on Durkee Street?
I haven't heard anything, and as far, the river walk is moving forward, that was.
Litigation.
It's still litigation.
Do they have an anticipated resolution date of that, or is it like scheduled for April and won't be any?
We've just submitted briefs recently.
Yeah,
So I actually want,
yeah, that's my thought too.
I'm not sure how long. Not, I'll get it back.
Yeah.
Just so you can have.
Yeah.
So the city is challenging the judge's ruling.
That I don't know, it's out of the planning review. Maybe more with, about one director.
So any questions about that or into that?
Yes. SRT 3 is moving forward. That's the green, further than one year time. Progress in, our, like, more pedestrian path. Structure. That is the remote.
As you, we're talking about sidewalks a little bit, initially I heard a lot of discussion about complete streets and some of what the DPW is working on. Are you coordinating with that too, or is that?
There was a grant that we just received, it was part of this last consolidated funding awards round, and we got it for, it's under the office of the complete streets. And she was implementing a portion of the bike friendly platform plan for, safe routes to school. Areas.
That was earmarked, I think, I read for Oak Street School.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, haven't done into that right now. The award is just being initiated.
Does the DEC keep you updated on the river remediation project?
Yes, we're in constant, communication with NICEAG and received, frequent updates from them.
Good.
So,
Are they satisfied with the progress?
yeah, I believe so.
I talked to you offline. I ran into one of the contractors when I was playing with the farmers market in the fall. So I can give you his thoughts on how they're moving and where they think they'll be.
Good. Yeah.
Any other items, or we're good? Okay, do a motion to adjourn. Somebody's looking at her. Okay, all second, all in favor? Aye. Thank you.